Hey everybody, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport in Scooter West here in San Diego, California. So every once in a while I like to do a shameless promotion for a used scooter that we have. Well, I only like to do shameless promotions for something that's extra special because we get a lot of used scooters. Like every week I have different used scooters. I can't keep up with them. But when it comes to vintage bikes, we rarely ever sell vintage bikes on consignment or have used vintage Vespas. They need to be to a certain level of restoration and running condition for us to back selling a used vintage scooter. So I thought I would share this 1979 P200 with you. This is an American spec P200, and I'm pretty stoked to see that it's pretty much 100% restored to spec. There's some modifications, like somebody's put a European taillight on it. The seat's not original. Those are the two big ones, but for the most part, everything's the way it was as it was sold in 1979. And also the color is a little different. Well, the color is pretty cool actually. It's Porsche light yellow from 1976. I think it's, what's that color called? Lechengelb. If I can't say German words too well, even though they're pretty easy to sound out, but 1976 Porsche 911, this is a pretty popular color for Porsches of the period. So it's a pretty cool color, nice pastel yellow color. The reason it was this color is here in Southern California, there was a Porsche mechanic here in Southern California. He wanted to tackle restoring a vintage Vespa, had all the resources, the paint, had the resources for the parts. You know, Scooter West here, here in San Diego, we have, pretty much a broad range of reproduction parts to restore and overhaul one of these scooters, whether it's the rubber parts that deteriorate over the years, or maybe the engine and electrical parts that you need to do a proper restoration of a P200. I have a lot of customers ask my service department, I have an old P200, I'm gonna drag it out of my grandparents' garage, the barn. I want to have it restored and a nice paint job on it. It takes a tremendous amount of hours to fully restore a vintage Vespa. Most of the hours are actually in the bodywork. The easy part's almost the engine. As you can see right behind me, we're restoring an engine for a 200-mile original PX 125. It's that old, it pretty much ate the seal, so you can see the orange cowls up there. It's a real nice color bike. It's belongs to a customer up in Los Angeles. So I thought what appropriate backdrop to have a vintage Vespa motor that's the same period as this scooter. So let me go over the scooter, show you everything about it. If you're interested in the scooter, usually when I do a video, you watch the video a week too late, it might not be available, but you could certainly call the sales department, 619-280-1718, extension 604. That's our vehicle sales department. I'm not in it, I'm in the service department. I'm one of the grunts with all my other mechanics because I like to get my hands dirty. But this is a beautiful bike. I would give it, out of a restoration, like if I was going to number it 1 through 8 or 1 through 10, I would call it 8. It's pretty much everything's there, but I see some small things like they use the original hardware there. That's not replated or replaced. They replaced the speedometer. We do have the original speedometer. They've only put a few miles of just riding around. There's the original speedometer to this scooter. Engine's been overhauled, of course, but it had around 15,000 miles on it. But it's got a much cleaner looking original speedometer, which is very nice, because oftentimes when you restore the speedometer, you'll replace the dome glass or plastic with a flat glass. Just doesn't quite look original. So if you're not familiar with the Vespa P200 range, which was sold in North America from 1977 right up to 1981, it was a pretty popular seller here in North America. It's the largest displacement vintage shifting Vespa that they have. 4-speed transmission, 200cc 2-stroke engine. It's got an auto oil injection system that works rather good. They're fairly reliable as long as you got fresh hoses and everything sealed. As you can see, the cowl's removed to access the motor, do service. These are very, very robust design for the vintage Vespas, and you get the added reliability of adding the electronic ignition. You can see somebody's upgraded that electronic ignition box with a little bit newer one. But it's not uncommon that I see this era of scooter coming with the original electronics, and it still sparks and fires and runs. Obviously things like gaskets and rubber seals have failed over the years, or just from miles you'd wear out the rings, the shifting cross, which is what selects the gears. But this motor's been overhauled. It's completely all original. I think it's got a newer exhaust, but still a stock style P200 exhaust system. So we added a chrome airbox cover to kind of dress it up. And as you can see, with the American spec P200s, pretty much anything from 1973 and on, they had to have indicators or turn signals on them. The P200 definitely got it right. They put the integral turn signals, they run the wiring right through the cowl to a contact here. You know, this is where I'd give it a nick on the restoration. You can see the wiring has been painted. You know, so if I was going to critique it for elegance de concours, I would probably see something like that, and I would give it one nick. But like I said, this thing is an 8 out of 10. It's actually very good. You know, definitely at the top of its level and restoration. Definitely perfect for a daily rider. If you want to ride it around, this is a perfect scooter for that. So with the Vespa P200s, these were kind of the first models where you can lock the seat. They have locks on the seat. They do not have locking cowls. That came in, I think, 1983. This is a DFA replacement seat. It's got the plastic pan with a foam versus the original spring seat. Under here, it's got the all classic style fuel cap. You spin that little thing there, you got the gasket, usually doesn't want to stay with the lid. And there's where you put your fuel, and you get a visual indication of how much fuel you have left, and you get a reserve that gives you, you know, about 2 liters or a half gallon of your last fuel before you got to hit the gas station. You got your oil tank right here. A lot of people don't understand how the oil tank and the indicator works on a vintage Vespa. They're always just topping it off. You wait until you see the sight glass where it shows the white indicator, and at that point you can pour a whole liter or a whole quart of 2-stroke oil into this tank. And I would say it's about 500 miles, 600 miles is how often you got to top off that 2-stroke tank. Very convenient versus mixing it into the tank every time you stop at a gas station. Right here is a pair of hooks to hook your helmet. The whole idea is you could hook the D-ring of your helmet hanging off the side, the front of your scooter, close the seat, and you have your pair of helmets secured with the scooter. So turn the key on, see the tail light comes on these American market scooters. Will turn the fuel to the on position, which is straight up. It does not have the original plastic American fuel tap on it. It's got the far superior European style lever, a conversion kit that actually blocks off the plate for that rather large plastic fuel lever. If you look at my Rally 200, I've talked about and reviewed in my past videos. That's my personal scooter has all the original American items, such as that fuel lever and stuff. And it's a little different, easier to use, but they're very fragile, and oftentimes they don't survive the 40, 50 years that they've been around. So I got the scooter on, turned the choke on, and typically I'll take it off the center stand and start it so you get a full kick, and kind of give it a tip to the left. And it generally starts within 1 or 2 kicks. I found it seems pretty good. Turn the choke off, and it's got a nice idle. Got the horn, headlights, runs off the alternating current. You see somebody's upgraded to the 2011 and later, or that's 2005 and later. Headlight. We'll turn the fuel off. And go ahead and shut it down. So you see the speedometer has been replaced. It all works in neutral light as well. It's got the original black rim. There's a couple little nicks in it. This is an original piece. It's got the original high beam and turn signal indicators. There are reproduction ones, but those are original parts. You see, these are original switchgear for a 70s era Vespa P200 sold in North America. And even the engine off and run switch is still intact. So you could turn it on and off. You see the neutral light. That turns the motor off. You got your turn signals, horn, high, low. All that stuff is all functioning. It does also have a parking light position on the key. And down here you got the key that's shared with the glove box. It's been replaced with a newer Zodi lock. So you can lock the steering, secure the scooter, and you can lock your glove box. And if you want to open the glove box, you leave it unlocked and it opens right up. It doesn't have some of the original stuff like the owner's manual and the air pump in here, but it does have the original spring for a toolkit. No toolkit in here, but pretty nice to see that spring that was for your toolkit. So the front end looks great. It's got an original American spec fender that actually has the holes and the reflectors reinstalled. Those reflectors now are very rare. They're plastic, and typically they get knocked off over the times. You can see it's an original style dampener with the plastic covers. The hub looks really nice. Somebody's resprayed it in silver. These metal parts normally would be zinc plated, but they've been resprayed. The control cables, both the front brake and the speedometer, they feel very smooth, but they're definitely the original part. You can see they're a little bit yellowed, but the new inner cable is well lubricated and they work good. No modern Teflon line cables, but the old ones work just as well as long as the cable's all greased. It's got modern Zippy 1 tires from Continental on both the front and the rear. Let me pull the left-hand cowl off and show you the spare tire that's underneath here. So just like the engine side cowl, the cowl comes right off. You see the battery right here. Somebody's added a battery tender to keep the battery charge topped off. You get the spare tire and the rim that bolts right up to the frame. There normally is a plastic cover that's here. The reproduction ones don't quite look like the original silver ones. But oftentimes people run them without it. It's just there to kind of clean up the looks. It's not present, but still has a spare tire in here. So if you're unfamiliar with vintage Vespas, a scooter like this has a 200cc two-stroke motor. It's capable up to about 65, maybe 70 miles an hour. Accelerates pretty good, definitely not as quick as a modern 300. It's about on par with a modern Primavera or Sprint 150. Those scooters having a CVT automatic transmission with no shifts typically accelerate a similar pace as a older 200cc manual transmission scooter. So it gives you an idea of what the performance is if you're more familiar with the automatic scooters. The way you shift these is on your left-hand side. That's your clutch, just like any manual motorcycle. And you twist up and it goes into first gear. And then you have neutral, second, third, and fourth. And of course, you only kickstart it in neutral. So you definitely don't want to kickstart when it's in gear. The scooter will want to roll forward. There's a lot of little tricks. Once you get to know a vintage Vespa, how to start it, how to have the finesse with the clutch. Sometimes the clutches can be a little bit more difficult to use compared to even a modern motorcycle that has a manual transmission. They're quite wonderful to ride, and they make wonderful noises out of the engine, even in the stock form. The two-stroke motor is a very unique kind of sound, and shifting through the gears certainly sounds nice to begin with versus an automatic that makes a lot of noise. That's just a constant drone of the RPMs. So again, if you're interested in a scooter, we may have it available, we may not. You can certainly check on the Vespa Motorsport.com website or give our sales team a call and they can give you details on this scooter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and Scooter West here in San Diego.